Welcome back to the Inward Nine, a fantasy golf metrics production. My name is Jeff Ulrich, and we are talking the Travelers Championship today. We're going to be doing a big U.S. Open recap too, talking about Brooks Koepka going back to back. Obviously, my man Steve had some nice money come in on that. The fantasy golf metrics guide absolutely killed it this week, so we're going to talk about that. My own picks absolutely sucked. This was my worst week of the year personally, but that's what happens when you don't trust the fantasy golf metrics guide. You lose money. So, anyways, Steve, how was the trip? First of all, you was out there the whole week, or for most of the tournament, anyways. Just give me your initial thoughts on the tournament.
I mean, it was phenomenal. For me, for having gone, basically for the last 10 years, this was one of the best trips. I mean, all around, I thought the tournament was great. I know there was a lot of controversy and a lot of different things, but I've seen a lot of different U.S. Opens, and this was exactly what I was hoping for this year. I don't think it was reactionary to Erin Hills, but I'm so happy it was more the way it was. Obviously, we were on Koepka for a few weeks heading in, so it was really fun to sweat that. And I basically followed him shot for shot on the back nine on both Saturday and Sunday. It was the first time my father came with me on this trip, so we got to experience Father's Day weekend at the Open. It was somewhat local for us,
Nice.
so it was easier for him to get out there. It was just all around. Got my best friends with me. I got my father with me. We had Koepka 40-1. It was a U.S. Open the way I like to see a U.S. Open played. It was just culmination of everything that I was hoping it was going to be. So really, it was awesome.
You,
It went too fast, to be honest.
you got everything. You got guys putting off the green. You got Phil like losing his mind. You got Sergio like just being abusive to fans. Basically, I don't even know if you saw that video,
I
but
did.
yeah, I mean, this event had everything. It was pretty it's pretty hilarious to be honest. Even for me, like I mean, usually when I'm like this out of it by like Friday, I don't watch too much on the weekend, but like I mean, I watched like most of the leaders on Sunday. I mean, it was just good theater, but yeah, I mean, what a crazy event. Obviously, I mean, I don't know let's talk about the course first. I mean, first of all, like, my only problem on Saturday, it's not that the course started to play too hard or even that the pin positions were too hard. I think Patrick Reed actually said it best. He said maybe one or two were too hard, but the course just played hard. But for me, the biggest deal was the morning guys got that huge advantage, and it was like then you had the Berger Finau final group, which just didn't feel right. Like I'm really glad Brooks won from the perspective of if Finau or Berger won, not that I don't like those guys, but like, wouldn't it just feel a little bit like not unearned, but just not right?
I appreciate that comment because right before we came on, I told you how I was like, I don't have a problem with anything. So you coming out here saying
Yeah,
this is my problem, that is what I do agree with. I
that's my only problem. Like
Yeah,
it's not that I felt the course was too hard. I mean, I like to see the course hard too, but the USGA gave a big advantage by just letting the course go to those morning players on Saturday, and that's my only thing because it just was such a big difference that it made it a little bit unfair. Other than that, I don't care. Like set up the course as hard as you want.
yeah, it was definitely weird to kind of go through everything on Saturday and then you're walking out the gates and you're looking at the leaderboard and you're like, Finau and Berger, like how is this happening? Where did this come from? I mean, again, I would say that when you're watching on TV, or even when you're on Twitter, like again, when I'm on the course, like I have the little headsets they give you that basically, it's like the Sirius XM feed, so you can hear a lot of the action. But I think when you're there, you're less concerned or less aware of what the issues or what people are really saying about what's going on. So it was weird to kind of see about it. It wasn't a thought process in my mind like right away, oh man, it was so much easier early for these guys and it's going to be an unfair conversation. I just thought, listen, that happens every week. You don't want to see it in a major, but it's kind of like a draw scenario. And it probably could have been mitigated to some extent, but at the same time, if they do that and DJ goes out and shoots another four under and it's a runaway. Listen, I understand you don't want to manipulate the golf course, but there is something to be said for big business, and they want to make sure it's a certain way, and they're trying to protect this kind of brand and this concept of what they have. So it is a little frustrating for a lot of people, I think, who I don't know if they're more purists or have a problem with that, but again, I thought it played out just like a U.S. Open would. I didn't think that Finau Berger was going to go out there on Sunday and follow up. We knew the only reason we were there is because they had those early conditions. If it was a level playing field on Sunday across the board, they weren't going to win. And you saw right off the gates the guys that stepped up. Fleetwood, Reed, Kepka, they went out, they were in the mix, and Berger and Finau, they didn't play poorly, they didn't play terrible, but they played probably like you'd expect them to play in the last group of a major. I didn't think at any point that either of those two guys were going to win, but yeah, it was a little
Yeah.
weird coming off Saturday saying, man, how did this happen? Where did this come from? I mean, to the point though, if you're DJ and you're 4 under and you're starting your round on Saturday, and I tell you, hey, you're going to be 3 over at the end of the day, and you're still going to be tied for the lead, how would you even react to that? You know?
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it probably hurt DJ the most out of anyone. I mean, just because he had the big lead and the course just started to play so different, and I mean the wheels just fell off, and he couldn't get him back on even on Sunday. I mean, the ball striking was okay, but the putter, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know. I mean, I feel like you're right with the draw bias. I mean, these things happen all the time. We see them in the Open, we see them in other tournaments sometimes, less often. But I guess the only thing I'd say is the USGA could have prevented such a huge bias, so that would be the only thing. But at the same time, like I don't care that the course was playing that hard. Like I mean, the best players were still there. That's all that, and that's the thing. Like people get all upset, and they're like, well, it's not a fair golf tournament. And then the best players who are in the best form always end up winning the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
So it's like, what do you want? I mean, I don't know. Like
it's funny because I was actually listening to the radio on the way into work this morning, and one guy was basically complaining, oh, well, the USGA messed it up because it's easy to tell. Look who wasn't there. Mickelson was way back. Jason Day missed the cut. Rory McIlroy missed the cut. Tiger Woods missed the cut. That's how you know it was a bad event. I was like, you clearly do not know what you're doing. I mean, this is like someone calling into like Michael Breed on SiriusXM.
Exactly.
Like this was a phenomenal leaderboard. I mean, I all day, when we're back at the tent and we actually see some of the TV coverage, I see 8 names, and they are 8 of the top players in the world. I mean, if the worst player is Berger or Finau, and we're talking like 30th in the world, that is a phenomenal event.
And look, like all those guys you just mentioned, Day, Rory, Spieth. Like, I mean, look, I like Jason Day coming in. I recognize there were some holes in his game coming in, though, too. I don't think anyone's surprised about Spieth if you follow the sport at all. I mean, missing the cut. He's obviously been up and down. Rory's been up and down, too. He's had like one hot putting week, and he's lost final rounds to Molinari and Reed. Like, he's not at the height of his game. So the best players in the best form were there. It's unquestionable. And again, I take this kind of event sub minus the huge draw weirdness on Saturday any time of the year. I almost wish the course played as hard on Sunday as it did on Saturday. But anyways, let's talk about Phil for a sec, because you were like, you saw it happen, right?
Yeah. So basically, our setup, again, fortunate with the shout out to Lexus. They always take care of us every year. We have the hospitality tent, and this year it was on the 13th green. It was basically it was overlooking the 13th green, which is really cool because for those of you that know the hole, essentially drivable to an extent, although no one really drove it, but they got up around the green. But yeah, I mean, mostly guys hitting irons and then kind of hitting wedges in. So nice to kind of see a scoring hole to be on that hole. But yeah, it was we're just sitting there at the edge, actually standing by, and we're about to go watch Koepka, and we're just waiting for Phil to finish up, and he does that. And there were 2 reactions I had. One, wow, that's a penalty. I mean, you can't do that. I mean, I knew he wasn't going to get disqualified. I knew that wasn't a disqualifiable, if that's a word, action.
Yeah.
You can have an opinion on whether you should be or not, and actually I would agree that you should, but until, I'm a purist when it comes to the rules, and the rules don't disqualify you. And if the R&A and the USGA want to get together for their next revision and make that a DQ scenario, 100%, I'm for it, but it's not. So you know what? Let's step away from that whole he should have been disqualified. He's disgraced the game. He's disgraced his name, his brand. Bullcrap. I don't want to hear it. He hasn't done anything, because he moves the needle just as much as Tiger to an extent for fans of the game, especially in person. The love that Phil gets on course, is outrageous. So let's not talk about what he's doing to the game or himself. Secondly, and this is kind of a take that no one really probably cares about or even thinks about, but I thought I had a crowd of people around me, and the reactions were like, oh my God, what was that? And I thought it was very interesting for people to have strong opinions, but not know the rule. And what I noticed was no one really knew what was going to happen. And I just thought it was interesting for a lot of people to get like so emotional, so riled up, but not even really know at the same time what that meant. Like, I mean, you watch football, you watch baseball, you watch basketball, all these sports, like when something egregious or crazy happens, like you generally know what it means, but so many people had no idea what it meant. So it was just like a whirlwind of kind of like, how is this happening? What is this happening? I've never seen anything like this in my life. I mean, it's borderline like historical, you know, to an extent, whether it's, you know, good or bad and different. So that was just one of the other things that I took away from it. Listen, I don't have a problem. I've always thought about the concept of using the rules to your advantage the best way, as long as you don't, you know, bend but don't break. You know, you can't cheat. You know, the whole backstopping thing. Listen, it's kind of like in those veins. I mean, he was within the rules. He felt that, you know, the ball was going to go much further away, and he would have been just as tough. Listen, what really would have been interesting, he almost made that putt when he hit it. Like, he hit it while it was moving. Yeah. It drilled the back of the cup. If that goes in, genius move by Phil. Genius move. He saves himself 2 strokes. He would have shot what? It was the 5th putt went past. He would have hit 6. He would have made 8. Like, he maybe makes 8 if it lets it go down the hill. Then there's another part of it. Listen, is he kind of trolling a little bit there? I think there's a little bit of that. You know, he owned it right away afterwards. He said, you know, I thought about doing it in the past, and I just did it. You know, it's not something that, you know, he hasn't considered. I guess when the conditions are ridiculous, he's Phil. He's to an extent bigger than, you know, the game. Listen, if someone like, I don't know, if someone unknown kind of did that, it'd be a lot different. And it shouldn't be, because it shouldn't be taken that way.
I don't know. I feel like if someone unknown did it, no one would care. Like, I really do. I just feel like it's not that big a deal. Phil was like, this is the thing.
Well, that's the thing. If you feel that way.
Like, in T60.
Yeah.
Like, he was so far back. Like, that's the reason he did it. It's not like he was trying to gain an advantage. I know he did maybe gain some kind of advantage, but I mean, it, like you said, I mean, if it had gone in, he probably would have saved a stroke or two. But like, the dude was out of the tournament. He knew he was out. He's just screwing around, and he was probably just fed up with the course. Like, I just don't know why people would even come close to being like, he sullied the game or something like that, or his reputation. It was just a funny event, in my opinion. Like, it's just, Phil knew he was breaking the rules. He broke it. He took his 2-stroke penalty. Like, who cares? Like, I almost just look at it as a non-event, to be honest. Like, I mean,
I completely agree.
People talk about it like he's cheating and he wrecked the field. There's like, it's so, like, you're talking about a guy who's out of it, man. Like, he's not in the golf tournament anymore. I mean, I guess from a perspective, like, he's maybe like, if he saves a stroke there, he's taking some prize money, I guess. But like, I don't know, man. And it's like you said, change the rule. If this is going to be a big deal to people, just change the rule, make it a DQ. Anyways, we probably talked enough about it already, but but yeah, it was a big week for the guy too, wasn't it? I mean, like, we were talking. What did you say? Like 8 out of the top 10 were like.
Well, no. So 8 of the top 8 of the guys in the first class were in the top 10. So, right, okay. I mean, yeah,
That's a pretty good hit rate.
I was talking to you beforehand. I mean, if you just took the first class and, you know, basically max entry and made all the possible combinations, you would have had a lineup that would have won the Millie by 7. So, bad on me for not doing that. I'm not necessarily a max entry guy. I was hoping maybe one of our users was going to once I came across that, because, you know, but hey, listen, I mean, a lot of guys hit this week, whether it was with the bets, whether it was with the guide. I know I got a lot of feedback on Twitter, guys saying, hey, great week, or, you know, showing me money screens, things like that, which is really exciting for us. And, you know, it's kind of funny. I feel personally, because I haven't hit a couple bets recently, that, you know, it's just like, you know, a long time coming. I've been really close on a lot. You know, hitting Koepka at the bigger number than he was, you know, just the week of the event was really exciting. Had a couple other bets hit, but one thing I'm going to say, and this is kind of like a, you know, silly kind of bragging thing, we are showing up in the majors as a site, because, I mean, we've had the winner in, except for, of course, missing with Patrick Reed at the Masters, the last 3 before. We had Koepka before, we had Thomas before, had Spieth in the bets, had this. So, you know, listen, we're kind of one of those players that likes to step up in the big moment, like the old Danny Willett before he got bet. You don't know who he is, but he's there and he's showing up in majors, things like that. So every time we have a big week in a big event, I get real like excited and invigorated. I mean, I'm, you know, partying for 3 straight days. I'm exhausted, but I'm pumped up to be here on this podcast right now. So that's kind of how I feel about this site. I mean, we had a big week. I felt like I was getting nickel and dimed on a lot of the bets. So to hit it big.
Oh yeah, I mean, you were due. I mean, like me hitting Bryson and you not hitting him felt really dirty. And then you were on Webb the week before too, and
Hmm.
you missed someone else too, didn't
Well,
you?
I had Reed the week before the Masters,
Right. Okay. Right. Yeah. That's
DeChambeau the week before, Webb the week before. Um, yeah, I mean, Kepka was
yeah.
just
No, I mean,
it had to
it was a
happen.
good call. I mean, like you said, I mean, you DM me the day you bet it, and it was like, yeah. I mean, I don't know why I didn't bet it too. I'm like, I even told you, I'm like, it's a really good number. You should definitely take it now. And I
Well,
just
that was it. This is less about kind of saying, what's the pick. I mean, I think a lot of people were on Kepka. A lot of people liked
no,
Kepka,
and
but
I mean a lot. I mean, there were
yeah,
some people who were really confident about it. I mean, whatever. I mean, like it was a good number. It was out there before.
it's
If
all
you
about the
hit it,
number.
yeah, that is. I mean, it really is. I mean, it's you can say whatever, but no, there were obviously a lot of people who hit it, and I mean, it was a good bet, especially if you could get it like before he dropped down to 20 or whatever. I mean, definitely, and even at 20, I mean, I don't think it's that bad a bet. Brooks Koepka's major championship record is ridiculous. Like out of his 11 or 12 appearances or whatever it is, like the guy hasn't finished like outside of the top 20. Like it's ridiculous. It's you should go check it out once you're done listening to this podcast because
What's
I mean
funny
the guy just
is,
shows up in majors, man. Like he's very complete player.
I mean, he's one of mine. He's definitely Bobby's favorite player by far. And Bobby went out and bought his Saturday Sunday outfit because he has a member next week, and he's going to play with
It
it.
was nice. I like that.
Yeah, it's
I like
fresh, always
yeah,
fresh. It's a Brooks collection. But it's funny. You tweeted out early when Reed was going hot. In 5 hours, there's going to be a guy that has more major. And you know what?
and now it's Brooks.
The tweet was right. It was the same list of players except
Yeah,
reverse Reed and Brooks, and it's pretty impressive. I mean, Brooks Koepka in his 20s, multiple majors, back-to-back U.S. Open winner. I mean, he's impressive. He's super impressive.
yeah,
It's
no, for sure. I mean, and the thing is, he sets up well for the U.S. Open, but he's going to set up well for the PGA in his career too, because that always plays long.
hmm
I mean, I don't think it'll be long until a guy who putts and chips that well has a breakthrough at the Masters. So, we'll see what happens with the Open. That's always a bit of a crapshoot, but I could see him winning the PGA or the Masters, in the next couple of years too, and getting to three majors. I mean, he's in the prime. He's just super confident too. Like I was listening to his press conference on Saturday before the final round, and like he's like, someone's got to take the trophy from me tomorrow. I'm like, wow, damn.
yeah,
Like,
he is
maybe I should go
cocky.
shove my house on Brooks Koepka. I probably should have, but no, I mean, like he's a very confident dude. I mean, kind of just he reminds me a bit of DJ, but just like with I don't want to say more focus, but with just a little bit more. I don't know, maybe more. Maybe focus is the word. I don't
I
know,
don't know.
but
It's definitely it's very very similar, but it's a little more brass. I mean, you've
yeah.
never thought of DJ as someone who's kind of like got a little bit of
No,
bravado or
like like
confidence.
like like DJ would never have said that. That's my point. Yeah,
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
he would have just been like, well, I'm gonna go out there and play, and you know,
Yeah.
probably have some beers after. But well, yeah, it was it kind of struck me as pretty interesting. So I mean, he's got a killer attitude to go along with his game. I mean, it's impressive. I will say this: I'm pretty interested in DJ, and I know it's a year away, and I know his odds already suck, but like. I'll be shocked if Dustin doesn't have like Pebble Beach 2019 circled right now because him and Brooks are friends, and you got to think somewhere inside DJ. And I know he's a chill dude, but that's gonna eat him up for the next year. That Brooks got to two before he did. So
Well, yeah. I mean,
I'll
especially with DJ's record at Pebble.
yeah, and with his record at Pebble and with his history there blowing up, he probably should have won his first major there in 2010, but
Hmm.
shot I think it was 83 in the final round. So that'll be interesting. I might just parlay every bet I make between now and then with DJ to win there. So he'll probably withdraw. But Jason Day will probably win, actually, because that's the way I roll in the U.S. Open. But yeah, obviously, guys, if you are listening, make sure you do check out the site, fantasygolfmetrics.com. We've got the Travelers this week. It's $5 per week. But, I mean, we've got the Open coming up, too. So the monthly, I think it's $15, right, Steve? That it'll basically take you to the Open too if you get the monthly soon. So just something to keep in mind because we got another big week coming up. But Open Championship's like 30 days away, so keep that in mind too. But let's anything else you want to touch on with the U.S. Open before we move on?
No, I mean, we've spoken about it a lot. I mean, I could dedicate this whole pod to talking about it.
Yeah,
So,
totally. I mean,
because
it's that's the kind of tournament it was, where like literally you could do a full recap show. But yeah, I guess we should talk about the Travelers at some point. With the survival guides out on site, which is good. This field is actually really stacked too. Like, I mean, just going through the top players here that are here. Brooks hasn't withdrawn yet. I thought he would, but I think he's actually going to play.
I think he's planning on
Justin,
playing.
yeah, I think so too. So Justin Thomas in the field, Rory, Spieth, Reed is here too. Jason Day, my best buddy, Jason Day, who fuck. Paul Casey, Bryson's in the field too. Actually, that's kind of surprising. He's been playing a lot. Leishman, Webb, Ryan Moore, Berger, Bubba.
I mean,
That's a lot of good players.
you got 12 of the top 25, which is like usually, when I count, when I look at like the top 25, top 50, top 100, usually the threshold for whether it's a good event or not is like that 50% of the field is in that top range. So, you expand it all the way out to 100, and yeah, you almost have the top 50, but it is a little top heavy in that regard. But like I told you before we came on, when I was updating the site and making sure the field was correct, I had to do a couple of double takes because I saw the field and I thought maybe I had left the U.S. Open field, because you look at the top and all these guys played last week, so it's really interesting. We don't have Brooks number one, but he's like decimal points away. I just you aggregate the data, he's basically 1A, 1B, 1C with a couple of guys we have at the top. But yeah, I mean, great field. I think this is going to be. Listen, I'm a little jet lagged from this week, so it's hard to dive in deep, but I'm definitely interested. I mean, I've been to this event before. It's only about 2 hours away. It's probably closer to get to there, even though it's not in the same state, to get out to them, to get to the Hamptons where we just were. But really cool course. I mean, if you are in the tri-state area, in the New York, Massachusetts, and that kind of New Englandy, New York area, go out to this because it's a nice event. It's a great course, and to get this field at kind of like a mid-level event, real good stadium type seating. It's a Pete Dye course, a lot of hills to sit on and look down on the course and the greens. So I would get out there if you can.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it's a pretty interesting course too, just from like a setup wise. Like, it's scoreable. There's some short par fives, but there are some tough holes with water, especially like on the way in. It's a couple really drivable par fours though that are exciting and bring bogey or into play as well with water. So, I mean, I think it's a cool course. I'm glad to see some players here. I mean, let's dive into it off the top. And we got Justin Thomas, who's got it like a top five here from a few years ago. I think he actually missed the cut last year off the U.S. Open at this event, but the year before he was like T3. Koepka, I don't think Koepka's played this event before, but just let me double check here. No, he did play. Sorry, he's played twice actually. 2016 T9, 2014 T51, and then Rory actually played here last year too. I forgot about that. Rory did play here last year. He finished really strong. I think he finished with like a 64. He was T17, so he just snuck through the cut and then finished strong. And then Spieth obviously 10-6 on DraftKings. Won last year. Spieth won. I mean, his approach game was pretty good. He's like seventh in approach last year. He's just solid throughout the bag. Won in a playoff with Daniel Berger. Daniel Berger's got a really good record here too, so that's going to be interesting from fantasy perspective because he's coming off the good week. I will say this about Daniel Berger: not only did he benefit from the soft jaw, but like he was dropping putts last week. He was first in strokes gained putting, so something to consider. I'm not sure he's quite in as good form as maybe people think, but he's got a really good record at this course, and apparently he likes the layout. So
yeah, it's kind of hard to say with him because I thought I was gonna play him at FedEx St. Jude when obviously back-to-back wins. He missed the cut. I didn't play him, so I was kind of happy there. But I did feel like there were maybe some signs. I didn't back him last week either. But when I saw him playing well, I was like maybe it's kind of hard to tell. I mean, I don't know. Like you said, if a lot of it has to do with the putting, then maybe it's a little tricky. But this course, it doesn't seem to favor. I can't really get a grasp on what it favors. It favors Bubba.
yeah,
it's like the Bubba Open. If you're playing one and done and you haven't used Bubba, probably going to be the week you want to consider burning them. But I'm looking at the course and just to go over some of the data. It's another one of those courses. I know every now and then I tell you it's like an average course. I mean, if you go to the course snapshot tool and you look at what the average field is for this compared to the average event on tour, everything is like the same.
Yeah.
To some extent, I mean, you miss a couple extra greens, but the scrambling numbers are around the same. I mean, a handful more approach shots from like the 150 to 175 range. So I think it's just people that can get into that like scoring range, which is basically 125, 150, 175 that are doing well. They seem to do well. But other than that, like it doesn't really seem like there's anything jumping off the page from an average event that strikes me here.
Yeah, I mean, when I looked at the course snapshot this morning too, the exact same thing. I was like, wow, birdie or better, bogey or worse. It's like nearly the same. A little bit of advantage to approach game. A little bit of advantage too, I think, to like driving accuracy, but it's small and it very much is like just the field average kind of thing for a lot of perspectives. I think that's why you see so many different styles of players can win here, which makes it interesting. I mean, Bubba won here in 2015, I remember, and he wasn't even hitting the ball that well. He just putted really well that week. And Paul Casey gained like 12 strokes on approaches and lost him in a playoff. So you can kind of get it done both ways. I mean, Bubba got it done that year with like the putter and just a good short game. Spieth kind of did everything well the year before. I think Russell Knox here, he won, was killing his approaches too. So you don't necessarily have to write off a guy just because he's not striking it at the height of his game, I guess. I mean, you want someone who's trending well, but it's not necessarily going to be the person who just like leads the field in strokes gained approach who wins this week. So something to keep in mind. Who he got out of this first range? I mean, is there anyone I know we haven't looked at the field, but just first impressions, looking at the survival guide, Spieth, Rory, anyone?
Well, let's first do this, because when we talk about the top guys, they're all guys that played this past week. So I think, is it something where you do want to take into consideration the grind, that aspect, a little hangover from the week?
In the last 2 years, Spieth finished T35 at Erin Hills, and then he came here and won. Knox finished like T22 at the PGA Championship because the Travelers was in August in 2016, but then he came here the week after and won. The year before that, Bubba missed the cut at the U.S. Open, then came here and won. So I don't know. I mean,
they're all guys that played the prior week. Yeah,
they played the prior week. I will say this: they weren't in contention. None of the guys who've won here the past 3 years, actually, none of the guys who've won here like the past 5 or 6 years, have been players who've been in contention at the major championship the week before. Some of them made the cut, but they weren't in contention. So it would draw me off. I mean, I'm not playing Koepka this week. I mean, I feel like he's just here probably to fulfill some kind of like, quota. And I mean, if he's feeling it over the first 2 rounds, yeah, I mean, he could get going, but I'm probably just going to skip him. But I'm not going to, like, especially for betting, I'm not going to hit guys who were at the front of the board last week. Like, I'm not going to bet Daniel Berger. I'm not going to, go crazy with anyone else that was up there or anything. I do feel like the guys who missed the cut, given the conditions and stuff like that, probably have a little bit of a boost just from a rest purpose. But that's my take. I don't think you need to write anyone off who played the U.S. Open last week, but at the same time, the winners here generally haven't been players who were like flashed on the leaderboard last week.
Yeah, I mean, I look at maybe it's a bounce back for Spieth, who's been that way this year. He's been a lot of hot and cold where you don't know what you're going to get from him. We don't have him ranked as high, only in the second class because of the up and down nature. But you talk about a guy that won here last year coming off a missed cut, like, he wants to go out there and play well. So it wouldn't surprise me if he if he came back, really played well. Webb is still playing really well. I mean, he ended up finishing strong, but he never really was in contention. So I don't really think that's an issue. But he's still not even in the top. I mean, if you're talking 5-figure guys, I don't know if this is a spot for Reed. Really, I mean, he hasn't had the most success here, but he is playing extremely well. I think I look at Thomas and Spieth as 2 guys from last week that might have a shot to play really well here.
Yeah, and Thomas obviously hasn't won in a while. I could definitely see that happening. What are your thoughts on Day and Rory? Because I kind of like this setup for them. I mean, we've seen a guy like Bubba come in here and be able to score really well. Obviously, Day's like way cheaper, which unfortunately maybe almost makes me lean towards him. I kind of like Rory though. I mean, he finished well here last year. This is his second year in a row playing it, so obviously he didn't hate the venue. I'm kind of interested in Rory this week, like especially with the idea that I'm probably not going to play Koepka because, like I said, if this just feels like a parade for him, victory parade.
It's really interesting because if you look at the pricing, yeah, Rory is $900 more on DraftKings. He's $100 more. I'm sorry, Day is $100 more on FanDuel. So it's going
Okay,
to be
so there
really
you go.
some of the pricing that I saw in terms of like ranking, very very interesting. But yeah, I mean the fact that the discrepancy is that large on DraftKings is very surprising to me. I mean, what?
Yeah,
Uh, I don't understand why.
I don't either. Because I mean I really just looked at it before the pod today, but yeah, I mean I wanted to play Rory, but then I look a day and I'm like, geez, man, like that's a big gap. But at the same time, maybe that'll just draw people off Rory, so which is good, especially for GPPs. You can definitely fit him in. I mean, there's enough talent in this field at the bottom. Rory's form is interesting too. I mean, he finished well at the Memorial. He played well over in Europe, and then he just missed the cut. So I mean, he's missed the cut at the Players in the U.S. Open. I don't know. Maybe he's having trouble with these big events, whatever. But this isn't a big event. This is a softer course. This is a spot where you probably like Rory McIlroy, right? Because it's a softer course, and he's not going to have to deal with a major championship if that's like his sort of block right now.
Well,
This
yeah,
is where he just comes out and swings freely.
yeah. I mean, he's played here once. He finished 17th, so obviously, he's played well here. I mean, the long term form, or like, when it makes me not long term, mid term form. I mean, listen, he won at AP, like you said, he played well at Memorial. Why not? There's no reason Rory's not a good play here, and especially at that price. You got to figure a lot of people are going to be thinking Day.
Yeah, I feel like people will jump back on the day wagon. And look, I could see Jason Day doing the same thing, just coming in here, swinging freely, getting his irons going. I mean, it's just such an easier venue, right? Because I mean, he wasn't playing that bad before. I just feel like with Rory playing here last year and being in probably just being a little bit more disappointed because I think some people felt his game was trending in the right direction for the U.S. Open with such some good results before it that I would see him as having a better bounce back shot. Now this is just me making up the narrative. The guide has them ranked like exactly the same too. So the guide is like saying the same thing I am basically. Either one of these guys could bounce back. So yeah, I mean you're gonna have to make up your mind. Hopefully Rory will end up being lower owned, and then he can make him get him at lower ownership. But we'll see when the projections come out. I feel like both those guys are on my radar. Maybe this play is just to play Spieth, like you said, but
Now,
I'm interested in Rory anyways this week.
I think from ownership, I think it's probably going to be a good play.
Yeah,
Definitely. Yeah.
hopefully I'm right.
If you jump down just a tad, you have the guy that is actually ranked first in history, who you probably think it's Bubba. How do you not like him this week? You have it in front of you. Do you know who I'm thinking about?
Yeah, I mean it must be Mark Leishman, right?
Nope. But Mark Leishman's like, come on, it's your boy Casey.
Oh, is he first in history? Is he?
Three starts here, average finish of 8.
Oh, okay. I thought the small sample size might have got him, but I guess yeah.
3 starts is kind of where I start looking. I mean, it's the last 3 years.
No, I mean, like I said, Paul Casey just absolutely throttled the course in 2015 and got really unlucky that Bubba just like putted the lights out. He gained, I think it might have been more than 12. It might have been like 16 strokes with approaches. Like it's sick. Go back and look at 2015. He was in contention last year too. So, yeah, I got no problem with that either. I mean, especially for a cash game play, that's might be where I start this week with Casey. I'm probably not gonna bet him at 17-1 or whatever.
No, that's the thing. I mean,
yeah.
you look at ownership. I mean, is this a guy that if you're looking at 9,600 and Day is at 9,800, do you catch a lot of people saying, "Well, how am I going to play Casey when I can play Day?"
That's true.
That's
true.
what I'm looking at. I mean, I see that
That's
price.
a good point.
I mean, listen, he played well last week, except for like one of the days, right? He had like a one bad kind of fallback round.
Yeah, I think it was Saturday, like most people. I'm not sure how well he played on. Actually, I don't think he closed well, but I mean, it doesn't really matter.
He was on the Millie Maker winning lineup, so good enough.
He wasn't terrible by any means, right?
So,
and it's only his second tournament back since the back injury too, so it's actually probably showing good.
Yeah.
That's a solid week. So
yeah, I mean, he was playing well, had the injury, took some time off. We got to see him at the U.S. Open where he held his own, and now he gets to go to a course where he's had some ridiculous success, and he's priced right next to Jason Day. Yeah. I mean, I'm there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. Of those guys, especially in the 9K range, I think I'd feel most comfortable with him. And you probably just talked me off using Jason Day, which is great. So, um, but yeah, no, I agree. Coming in with pretty good form, he was certainly a few question marks that he answered last week, so that's good. Going down there, Brian Moore too is really interesting. I absolutely hate the betting number. He's like 33-1 in this field,
Mm-hmm.
but 9K. He's having a really good statistical year. If you look at his ball striking, absolutely. I was actually surprised he wasn't going to be first in course history at this event because his course history is he's number 2. There you go. He's got too many top fives for me to count, quite frankly. But like one missed cut since 2006. Plays here almost every year. Actually, hasn't played here. He's only played here once the past 3 years. He must have been getting sick of coming in second, basically. So, but I mean, he's having a really good year. Like I mentioned Berger, but I think I'd just go more this week personally. I think I'd feel better, especially in a cash game.
Yeah, I mean, you look at him, you look at the history. I mean, he's been up on the guide for us for a while, and he hasn't. I feel like I've wanted more for him based on where I've seen him ranked.
He really just hasn't had a good putting week.
Yeah.
He hasn't been able to get it going. You know, like it just feels like his tee to green game is fine, but he can't make the big putts when he needs it. He can't string them together, and it's just he's had a lot of like top 15s, and that's it.
And it's funny you mentioned because you talk about the course history. I mean, that's why you thought Mark Leishman too, because he's right there as well.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's got the decent course history. The form with him is more, you know, off and on. Like it's you can make a case against him this week. I feel like better than you can for Casey or Moore because, you know, I mean he was up there for the U.S. Open, but then he's kind of did what he's been doing like at a lot of his tournaments. He just finished horribly, like a horrible Sunday. That's kind of what he's been doing outside of the big week at the Byron Nelson. Obviously, he could bounce back easily here though. I mean, he likes his venues, so.
But yeah, I mean, it's kind of in that range.
What about Cantlay? Like, are you big on him this week? Do you feel like this is the week, or?
You know, it's one of those. I'm not big. It's not like I'm coming out saying, "All right, this is the Cantlay week," but you know, I like him. You know, I've liked him for a while, and
that's a good price, right? Like,
yeah,
it's a great price. One of the most popular players.
I imagine. I mean, we have him ranked 10th in form. You know, he's 30th in the world at 8,400. He's kind of like that new sexy name. I think the only thing holding him back is, and it's hard to say because he's still so young. I mean, he's only made 1 of 3 cuts here. But if you look at when those, events were or what he shot, let's see, bring up 8,400. So yeah, he hasn't played. This is when he was young. 2014, he barely missed the cut. 2012, he missed the cut. Actually, in 2011, he finished 24th. So you know, the course history is kind of hurting him a little bit in terms of the guide, but. This is, you know, Patrick Cantlay now is not Patrick Cantlay of 2014, 2012. Like, it's just not even worth looking at. I almost, you know, want to start going into the model and, like, kind of adjusting individual player history, like, type stuff. But it's a little, then it gets a little too complex. You could,
yeah, I know what you mean. Like, I mean, he's behind Bubba, he's behind Leishman, but he's definitely a player you can make a case for ranking in front of those two right now, just on the basis of, like you said, his course history is kind of from maybe when he was younger or even injured because he had some years there where he wasn't playing at 100%. So definitely be a popular player this week, but I could see him getting it done here. So there are some interesting names like Zach Johnson's here, Snedeker's here. Russell Knox he came through for the top 20 for us. We didn't even mention him yet, but I mean, what a great week he had. T12 on a monster course. Like,
that was a guy I was gonna definitely get back into. I mean, 7-1 top 20 was beautiful. We liked him last week on the pod, and then, you know, like you mentioned earlier, he did win here 2 years ago. So, you know, one of the main reasons I liked him last week was the trend on, you know, what I saw with the secret stat and how he was actually striking it. You know, it sounds similar to the kind of way he went out and just got it 2 years ago at Travelers. So, you know, based on how he's playing and the fact that we know that when he's on form, he can play well here. I mean, did Russell Knox won here? That was the same year he also won. It was 2 years ago at the WGC, right? Early in the year.
That's right. Yeah, he won the WGC like late 2015, and then he came here late. It was August 2016 that year because they did it after the PGA. But yeah, and then he that was the same year Furyk shot 58 on this course.
Yep.
I don't know if you remember that.
No, of course. I mean, it's funny because, you know, Knox is one of those guys where, like, he can play really badly, but when he plays well, like, he can go out and win. You know,
absolutely. Yeah.
So when I see
when he
that,
makes the cut, when he makes the cut, he's almost always feels like he's in the top 20.
Yeah.
So, Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, he was semi in contention, so I mean, something to think about. But I'm not going to put anyone off Russell Knox just because he played well last week. He's really been trending, like you said, for us. We've been talking to him about him the last few weeks, even before the US Open. So I don't feel like on this venue that sets up way better for him that you shouldn't take advantage of 8K. I mean, you can make arguments for using other players in tournaments or whatever, but he'd be the play for me at that range. So let's go under him because there's some players that are really interesting and maybe more from like a betting perspective or just like a GPP perspective because it gets a little bit less, certain here as far as like plays go. But Patrick Rogers, Jamie Lovemark, Grillo, Stanley, Russell Henley. Of that group, just give me your favorite. Like, and it doesn't have to be like a huge thing. Just who would your favorite be out of that group?
I mean, Grillo right now is interesting to me at the price point. Obviously, drafting 7,700. I'm sure that means he's like 50-1 in that range, 40-1, or is he lower than that now?
Yeah, he actually opened at 70-1.
Yeah, so
which I took advantage of because I thought that was too big. But yeah, he actually opened at 70-1.
So I mean, I imagine that number is going to come down a good amount if it hasn't already. But I mean,
I think it already has.
I mean, I have of those guys, the guide ranks him highest. Rogers, kind of like up there. I mean, I think Rogers is more on his trend scenario. I mean, when the guide looks at that aggregation of the last 12 events, he's kind of middle of the road, but he does rank fourth in trend. So what I would say is, it hurts in that, on paper he's missed 4 of 8 cuts, but it doesn't mean he's not playing better. So he's definitely interesting there. I'm sure there's probably a good number. Right around that, I can't remember the guys you just mentioned, but I think was Stanley on that list?
Stanley, Lovemark, and Henley.
Lovemark and Henley. Okay, so Henley, kind of flashed last week. Faded, obviously, but showed he's got something going on. I mentioned before we came on, I think this is a great week for Stanley to kind of bounce back. He almost won. He came really close at Memorial. I was really concerned that I was going to be late on him because he was a guy that I was like I wasn't ready yet, and now that I saw him play well there, kind of fell back. He played well early and then had a bad second day at the U.S. Open, and one bad round at the U.S. Open doesn't really deter me too much. So Stanley coming into this event, he's actually played here a lot. But again, Kyle Stanley now is a different player than old Kyle Stanley. So not the greatest record here, but I think it could be a good bounce back week for a guy that was trending in the right direction.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I was kind of happy to see him in the field this week. I wasn't like 100% on him this morning yet, but I mean, I'm almost certainly going to have some exposure to him, DFS betting or something like that. So I'm just trying to look up his history actually right now. He has played here quite a bit.
Yeah, he's only 4 of 8 cuts made.
Where are you, Kyle?
But he's got a time. He finished 20th in 2015, 57th. Last year, so
Yeah, he's got a top 20. So I mean, he made the cut last year.
Technically, too, if you go back to 2009. But again, I mean, what does that mean?
Yeah, that's the thing. And like he had like a 3-year stretch where he was like barely on tour, like playing on the web.com. Mm-hmm. So I just not a player I would weigh course history much with. I think it's a good setup too. The price is definitely right for me to get back on him. I mean, 7,700. I mean, Grillo's fine too. Like. I think if you really forced me to choose, I would take Stanley over Grillo. And again, I like both these players, so using both of them, maybe even as like a cash game, is fine. Yeah, I'm really interested. I will say this: I'm really interested in Russell Henley this week. Mm-hmm. People probably won't remember this, but because they weren't as heartbroken as me. But I think it was 2000. Yeah, it was the year Knox won. He had the lead on 15, so he missed a short birdie putt. Then he went to the next hole, bogeyed, and then he went to 17 and he 5-putted. Like, I'm not kidding, he 5-putted. Mm-hmm. So like he sets up well for this course. He's played here well. He's not just trending. Like, I know he played well at the US Open, but he played well at Memorial too. Like, he's starting to get it going a bit. I just like Russell Henley as a player, and we know he can win. So it's definitely not, like I said, Grillo, Stanley, cash game, Henley, GPP. The thing I like about Henley is his upside really is as good as those other players. So I don't feel like you're giving up something by not playing like by playing him over Grillo or something like that. Like
Yep.
Henley's won on 2 or 3 times, right? I mean,
Yeah, I mean he's a winner. I mean he's a guy that when he gets hot and gets into it, he's got a chance to get it done. And a lot of the guys in this price range, that's not the case. You know, he's just one of those guys where he doesn't always have it, but when he does, watch out. And I think that's there's something to be said for that. So yeah,
yeah, for sure.
listen, he fell back. He finished 11th that year. I'm actually trying to bring up I want to see what the strokes game putting was in the last round. Yeah, I mean, for a guy that was, he was T1 after second round, T2 after the third round, goes out negative 3.718 strokes for that round.
Oh yeah, I wasn't kidding. I watched the round, man. Like it was ugly. He had a 5 putt.
16th hole,
Yeah.
negative 2.152 strokes lost on one hole.
No, it was ugly. It was like 100-1 that week too, and that was the week everyone was on Knox except me. I was on Henley. I thought I was gonna, be the hero, and then anyways.
And that's
I'll
one of
remember, he owes me. So there you
He
go.
owes
But no, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's one of my favorite things about the new tool is like it's part just kind of like looking at what happened. You can only make it so much a part of your research in terms of who you're going to pick, but like the fact that we were able to just kind of look at exactly what those numbers were and what happened, it's just fun to be able to kind of observe.
And that's the round searcher tool. So I mean, if you guys want to go back, if you're subscribers or if you're thinking of subscribing, you can get the round searcher tool on Fantasy Golf Metrics. Go back and look at what people actually did strokes gained wise last year. So you can go back and look at Spieth's final round, whatever. It really is like it's a fun tool. It's pretty useful too. So I like it. It's very easy to use. So that's the round searcher tool.
I was just looking at Bubba, the one you mentioned. It was for the whole tournament just about just under 6 strokes gained putting that year that he edged out Casey.
You should look at Casey's approaches too from that year, from 2015, because they're like off the charts. He was so far in front of second strokes gained approach too that week. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean, he was 2.51 but that's a lot for a segment of strokes gained tee to green. You look at that. I mean, all week. I mean, almost 1.6 for the whole final round. So, yeah, I mean, just got edged out by a putting Bubba.
Yeah, the worst kind of Bubba. What are your thoughts on Rogers? I mean, I'll throw out a few things. I mean, he's apparently changed swing coaches like a month or two ago back. He's working through things that he used to work on back when he was high school or whatever. Just seems to have a better positive attitude. He's got a really good record at this event too. That's something else you guys could check out. But he's shot 68 or better 7 times here over his last 12 rounds.
Has a top 3.
Has a top 3. Yep. I like him this week. I'm really big on him. I bet him at 90-1. I think he's got a legit chance to win this tournament. Like I really do. I mean, I think he's talented enough to win. And I think it's a really good setup for him. So.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I know you like him. You've been talking about him all day. So.
Yeah, no. I mean, he played well at the U.S. Open. I mean, he basically, I think he went 72-72, 83-67.
Listen, yeah. I mean, I was gonna say, you were talking about how he kind of wasn't playing well, made some switches. He played well at Memorial, finished 8th, and then listen. When I look at that, if I'm trying to like take a high level approach at looking at like the event by event info on the survival guide, and I know that a guy's made a change and he flashed something, I don't look at going out and finishing 41st at the U.S. Open for a mid-range player in the middle of a change as a negative thing. I look at it as a positive thing, building upon a really strong finish at the Memorial. So if the trend is back-to-back cuts made, one of the top events in the world, you kind of fought through it, and at 8th the week 2 weeks before at Jack's place after missing 5 of the last 7 cuts. You got to feel good about where he's going, and that's what we talked about earlier when I said the trend rank is 4th. I mean, you can see exactly how that trend rank aggregates when you look at the week by week progression. So the fact that it's not just progression, but it's progression due to change, that would get me excited as well. So I hope he's there because I know you're going to have a lot on him. I definitely like him. Whether it's this week or maybe even he's a guy I would definitely be tracking this week and the next couple of weeks. So
yeah, that's what I would say too. Yeah.
So I'm there.
Okay, cool. That's good to know. We can all win the Patrick Rogers money. Probably be like 4 weeks from now, but What I mean, we won't talk too much about the rest of the field here. I mean, we can get into if people have more questions, do subscriber chat deep down or read the articles. But is there anyone else like under that kind of pops out to you? Justin Hadley's 7,300.
Well, before that, because he's right next to him, Brennan Steele, and I only bring him up.
Okay.
He missed on the number at the U.S. Open, and or no, he made it with ties, 63rd. So he must have been like last place, right?
Yeah, he shot 80 round on Sunday.
Yeah, so basically last place. But obviously he didn't play much heading in. He's just one of those guys with a really, really strong kind of course history. So
right.
I think people were interested in Steele a little bit last week as like a sleeper kind of pick who hadn't played in a while. So I just didn't know if there were any thoughts. I mean, listen, he's gone out. He went 14th, 17th, 25th, 5th, 13th the last 5 years here. So if you're a course history guy, you can't ignore that. I don't know that I'm interested, but I just thought it was noteworthy.
Yeah, if he'd be a player I'd probably be interested in if the field wasn't as good. Like if Grillo and Stanley weren't both at 7,700, I'd probably have some interest in Steele. But I feel like with both those guys there, and even with like Hanley up there, I'm probably just gonna let him go. He's probably gonna be like 5% owned because I feel like a lot of people might feel that way. Or maybe they'll just look at the course history and play Brandon Steele. Brandon Steele usually gets pretty well owned, actually.
Yep.
Like people like him. He's kind of like Kevin Na, except not Asian and tall. So I don't know. I mean, you know what I mean, though, right? Like he's kind of like a pretty popular play for DFS. He does make a lot of cuts, but I'll probably be off him this week just because I got too many other guys. I feel a little bit trending. Maybe it was just trending, like you said, trending a little bit better than him. But yeah, like I said, Cheston's down at 73. I don't know if there's anyone else you want to shout out to. I mean,
I'm looking at the guide, just looking at some of the lower price guys. I mean, the first guy, the highest ranked guy we have under 7 is Vaughn Taylor.
Right.
Trend is looking really good there overall. But there's nothing. The field is good enough in the mid range that all these guys in the 7s. I had more interesting guys sub 7 last week than I did this week, which is kind of funny.
What about JJ Spawn?
Well, the last time I said I wasn't there, and he kind of came back and finally played well, but I don't even see, where do I have him? We have him down pretty far.
I mean, it's the same story. Like he's tee to green. He seems fine. It's just he can't putt.
Yeah, I mean he's a tough scenario when looking at the stats because in theory he's missed all these cuts, right? So you look at, but it's part like injury, part kind of coming away. So it's one of those things where what do you take from that? But I don't know. I mean, he's missed. He finishes third at the AT&T Byron Nelson, but
yeah, and then he misses 3 cuts in between that. Like it's very strange, to be honest, because he shot under 70 all 3 rounds at AT&T, and his other 6 rounds in his last 4 starts have been 71 or worse. So
I think this is perfect. This is the perfect use of we upgraded the event by event on the survival guide, and yeah, he missed the cut at Memorial, negative 6.9 strokes gained. Missed the cut at Fort Worth, negative half a stroke gained. 2 weeks before the Players, negative 5.2 strokes. The third place, 3.8. If this guy shows up and putts, he's like one of the top players in the world because he strikes it that well. He's just one of those guys. He's a really, really bad putter. He's like, him and Aaron Baddeley need to have a kid, and then they can go out and win 20 majors. That's like the kind of conversation. I was sitting there trying to explain to people like Aaron Baddeley is like one of the best putters in the world, and nobody knows about it. It doesn't matter because he doesn't. He stacks and tilts. Like.
But just so people know too, Steve's talking like there's tabs down on the survival guide just in case you're a subscriber. You can click on either one. We're talking about the event by event. It shows tee to green, strokes gained, putting, what guys did. So I mean, survival guide, obviously, make sure you're getting the most use out of it too by using the tabs because there's a lot of information just in there too. Especially you can just look at it, go right back, and know what happened. So that's an awesome thing. But yeah, I mean, JJ Spawn, it is what it is. It's like you said, if he puts that putter together, man, I bet him at 200 to 1. I don't even know if I'm going to play him. I probably won't even play him this week on a DraftKings or anything like that. But I did bet him at 200 to 1 because I feel like if he putts top 5, maybe even a win is possible. So That's probably as deep as I'll go. I don't really have too much else here, Steve. I don't know if we should shout anyone out here. Joel Damon is back in the field.
Listen, he's
Can you get
still up
back on
there.
that shit?
I'll support it. I mean, I'm not as excited. I mean, he kind of like one of those things where you rode him and then he bucks you. But
he let us down at the big opportunity. But
he
no,
really,
I mean it's one event. I mean it's definitely like a GPP thing. I don't think it's a bad idea to get back on him. But you know,
nice. He's still up there. I mean, other than that, I mean, we're gonna have a couple updates. It's hard to say.
yeah.
I'll probably watch some of it this week just because I don't have as much going on this weekend. So it'd be nice to kind of like relax and tune in, especially with a good field. I mean, you gotta figure with. Listen, sometimes you have an event like this and you have 3 or 4 headline names, and if they don't play well, it can get really boring. There's no way that one of these top guys or 2 or 3 of them are not in the mix, and that's going to make it exciting regardless of the rest of the event. I mean, you're guaranteed, in my mind, for this to be a very, very successful event. And the Travelers, it's funny because, like I said, I went the one year, and ever since, I get peppered with emails like, hey, get your tickets reserved now. This person committed. And every single year over the last 3-4 years, I feel like they've improved the field. It's really becoming an event that people are going to. And I'm surprised because the U.S. Open is a grueling week. So I guess it's probably more in relation to the fact that it was local. I mean, guys weren't, going to leave Chambers Bay and say, yeah, let me get to Cromwell, Connecticut and play in the Travelers. But realistically, if they're not flying out, you can't, unless you're flying private, which a lot of these guys are, you have to go all the way back to the city. And if you're going to go back to the city and make that travel, you can basically just hop up to the course there. So it makes more sense logistically, and I think that's probably why. I'd be surprised if this field is as stacked next year after Pebble, and then I'd be expecting it to maybe come back to this type of field when it's at Winged Foot, the following year. Right. So that's why I think what we're seeing here. But it's really cool to see this level of names. And I am interested in the event, but I don't, listen, coming over my hangover from the Open and getting everything, updated. I don't have as much, but I'm excited about it.
We'll have more thoughts throughout the week. Like I said, my Tuesday article, I'll get more into the lower stream guys, the chat and stuff like that. Definitely follow us on Twitter at the Fantasy Grind at FG Metrics. But before we get out of here, give me a winner. I mean, who do you think's going to take us down? I'm giving you. This is one of the most off the bat ones right away. I'm going with Thomas to come back and kind of just like say, hey, I'm still here. No, I mean, I like it. I mean, like I said, the guys who have missed the cut, we've seen some really big bounce backs, so that wouldn't shock me at all. I really kind of want to go with Patrick Rogers and I'll just go with Patrick Rogers. I guess I'll try and be the hero. Do it. He's honestly, he seems really focused, and sometimes people forget how talented he is. So I think it's a good spot for him. I will say this: if he doesn't win, I feel like he's going to be in the mix somehow, but we'll see. I'll go with Rogers. So anyways, for me and Steve, guys, have a good week at the Travelers. Like I said, make sure you give us a follow on Twitter, and we'll talk to you soon. All right. Take it easy.